Buongiorno. Do current world situations find you clenching your sphincter tighter than a skeeter's ass in a nosedive? At the Little Peanuts That Could, the podcast and the cartoon series, we think we have the answers and solutions to protecting and saving world democracies and our climate, and thus relaxing your uptight sphincter. Welcome to the relaunch of the Little Peanuts That Could podcast and cartoon series, including our sketch called Between the Two Peanuts, with my Swami, Ashfaq. We're currently relaunching our first 10 shows, plus the best of Swami Ashfaq's quotes, and the best of our funniest and hardest-hitting commercials.
All the characters are from my dreams and should not be viewed by anyone.
And now, another one of our great commercials.
Buongiorno. Do you find yourself with an itchy penis? Do your nuts smell as if they're moldy or rotting? My name is Dr. Gino Bartali from the Psoriatic Bloated Scrotus Institute, and I'm the inventor of Dr. Gino's Bloated Scrotum Aromatically Enhanced Penis Infection Cream. Whether your dangling darlings are smelling like a decaying walrus or itching as if infected by the fleas of 1,000 camels, all you need to do is generously apply and massage Dr. Gino's Bloated Scrotus Aromatically Enhanced Penis Infection Cream into your nuts, and in moments, your better half will be saying, "Mamma mia, that's an effervescent penis." Warning, do not massage our cream onto your penis if excessively swollen, if you're allergic to aromatically enhanced penis infection creams, or if your nutsack is perforated, as hospitalizations and death may occur. Should you experience lightheartedness, throbbing, additional swelling, or unusual secretions from your penis, contact your doctor, and don't forget to visit itchypenis.com and enter the promo code NUTS and receive 25% off your first order.
And now, the best breaking and broken news segments in the industry. Broken news, folks. Famous American company Oscar Mayer announces the discharge of their wiener mobile. I am Dr. Gino Bartali with PNN, the Peanuts the News Network, and my show, Giving Head to the Headlines. Folks, Oscar Mayer have capitulated to the far-right big government weasel blowers of America faster than sluice through a goose by announcing that they are renaming their famous wiener mobiles and will now be calling them Frankmobiles. This capitulation to far-right political correctness demonstrates just how flaccid Oscar Mayer's wieners have become. I mean, imagine it, folks. It's date night. You and your better half are taking a nice romantic walk when you just happen to find yourselves face to face with a tube steak on wheels. I think I can speak openly for most of the lovely ladies out there who like a nice wiener ride, and also for the fun-loving or gay men of the world. You would all be forever disappointed by an offer for a ride in the Frankmobile, but would no doubt get all hot and bothered if given the chance to hop on the Wienermobile, if you know what I mean. And that leads us to breaking news, folks. The GOP, those responsible for the elimination of wiener rides in America, they have appointed Representative Jim Jordan as the leader of the GOP-led House Weasel Blowers Subcommittee. Now, as their conservative leader, Jordan has just unleashed a pussy in Congress, a pussy of weasel blowers that now has the whole world laughing at American politics and the GOP. Folks, this is one of those stories where I, Dr. Gino Bartali, your favorite investigative penis, and host of PNN, the Penis News Network, I intend to take a deep dive so as to impregnate you with the truth and facts in my show, Giving Head to the Headlines. Now, many of you may not realize it, but I, Dr. Gino Bartali, am the former president of U-Blow, the United Weasel Blowers of America. And I can tell you this, when it comes to blowing weasels, I know what a good blowjob looks, feels, and sounds like. And although Jim Jordan is a big blowhard, the FBI witnesses he called, they are simply pawns in the attempt of Russia and China to trick or purchase various GOP politicians into destroying world democracy. First, who are these supposed blowers of the weasels that Chief Sub Mr. Jordan of the GOP House Weasel Blowers Subcommittee is promoting to testify against the FBI? It turns out that these are FBI agents who have lost their security clearances and been fired. They were fired because they are unfit to serve in law enforcement in America. They have literally been identified as threats to America, our laws, and world democracy. And as such, they do not even have any legitimate complaints or improper actions by the FBI and American law enforcement. In other words, they don't even have any damn weasels to blow. Here are some of the reasons why just one of these agents lost his security clearances. 1. He refused to execute a court ordered arrest warrant against someone charged with offenses and crimes against America. 2. He participated in unauthorized downloads of sensitive FBI information. 3. He failed to participate in security awareness briefings. 4. He is accused of unauthorized sharing of sensitive FBI information. 5. He made unauthorized recordings of executive FBI management. 6. He showed a lack of candor when interviewed about these issues with the FBI Security Division. And 7. He had unauthorized interviews with Russian media known to be propagandizing to overthrow world democracy. In other words, some of these disgraced FBI agents are likely willingly, knowingly, or unwillingly or unknowingly assisting Russia and thus China in the overthrow of American and world democracy. I mean, one of these GOP Jim Jordan sub-weasel blowers approved FBI witnesses was interviewed by a Russian news agency, and he has been determined to have a lack of allegiance to the United States of America and is administratively guilty of criminal activities possibly related to sharing sensitive information with foreign adversaries. Mr. Jordan, the House Sub-Weasel Blowers Committee is intended to prevent weaponization against America, and instead, you are actively weaponizing those who are accused and determined as criminally and ethically unfit to serve this great nation. I mean, having these failed and discredited agents seemingly blow FBI weasels about the FBI is like having Dolly Parton as the keynote speaker at the International Tortilla Titties Symposium. It is painfully obvious that you, the chief sub-weasel blower, Mr. Jordan, don't even understand how blowing weasels is supposed to work. I mean, let's not forget, as a former coach, the first fucking thing they do when you get hired as a coach is give you a goddamn weasel and teach you how to blow it. When you were a coach at Ohio State, your students alerted you, Mr. Jordan, that they were being sexually assaulted by Team Dr. Richard Strauss. And what did you do, Mr. Chief Weasel Blower? Did you blow your weasel? No. You stuck your hand in your goddamn pockets, you coward, and you played with your weasel while they were being sexually assaulted. This is why I want to take this moment and pull out my trusty Jimmy Carter penis weasel and give it a good blowjob so you know what it sounds like when a weasel is blown. The reason that Mr. Jordan is unfit to represent, much less lead on this GOP sub-weasel-blower committee, or even represent any American, is because when history and human decency demanded him to blow a weasel, he refused, and all he did was stick his hands in his pockets and play with his weasel as young men who pleaded for his help were sexually assaulted. Look, folks, metaphorically speaking, having Jim Jordan lead the GOP sub-weasel blowers committee is like having Professor Mafarty Booty as the keynote speaker at the International Anti-Flatulence Convention. This is why we, at PNN, the Penis News Network, have this message for Mr. Sub Jordan. Blow me, you asshole.
And now, let's get back to our show. Buongiorno, and welcome to episode 4 of The Little Penis That Could, the podcast and the cartoon series, where we intend to do or say all kinds of fun, thoughtful, and aspirational things, while respectfully imploring lovers of democracy all across the world to unite. And can I just say, watching badass Brad Pitt dressed as Paul Revere racing across the internets on his rain horse Butters with that big, beautiful, glowing red penis on his nose, watching that while knowing we are pranking gorgeous George Clooney into selling these audaciously tasty, juicy, and nutritious little peanuts of positivities for charity and democracy. I don't know about you folks, but we at the Little Penis That Could, the podcast and cartoon series, we think that's one hell of a Christmas present to the world and lovers of democracy. Now, on today's show, we would like to introduce our latest show segment called Giving Head to the Headlines, where I, Dr. Gino Bartale, will read to you a recent headline and then discuss what popped into my head as I read it and the article. For our first article, we look to Politico, and the headline says, Elon Musk's twist on tech libertarianism is blowing up on the Twitter. Silicon Valley's cult of the founder meets modern Republicans' anti-woke culture warring. First, let's talk about libertarianism, capitalism, socialism, and democracy. Libertarianism is defined as a political philosophy that advocates only minimal state interventions in the free market and the private lives of citizens. They say no true libertarian would ever support a culture where citizens must show their papers to travel. Now, socialism is defined as a political and economic theory of social organization which advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the communities as a whole. Democracy is defined as a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives. And the capitalism is defined as an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. I would like to throw one other one in. It's called social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship is a for-profit business model that strives to make a positive impact on social issues or the environment. So, before we begin discussing this article, we need to make one thing very, very clear. Libertarianism and democracy are in direct conflict with each other, especially if capitalism and free markets are the supposed foundations of your democracy. What we mean by that is this. The fundamental supply and demand ideal behind capitalism is supposed to drive costs down and create competition in
free market capitalisms. Yet, this is in direct conflict and is a lie or falsehood when combined with libertarianisms. If you doubt that, let's consider the facts as we discuss Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. If you do not know the famous Peter Thiel, he is a former partner with Elon Musk when they founded PayPal, and he famously wrote the article for the Wall Street Journal titled, "Competition is for Losers." If you want to create and capture lasting value, creating value isn't enough. You also need to capture some of the value that you create. I believe that this requires us to define the value as related to a capitalist and capitalism. Supposedly, the values include competition so as to drive costs down. This open and free marketplace then promotes further competition, and this not only provides profit as value to the owners of the company, this provides value to the capitalist marketplace by creating competition. Yet, Peter Thiel and Elon Musk seem to be against creating competition because they strive to develop monopolies. These are the libertarian ideals which then undermine and destroy a democratic, capitalist, foundational democracy.
Well, folks, we hope that you visit Pod Save America in the near future. And let's get back to the second part of discussing free market capitalism, supply and demand, and how to implement Peter Thiel's business model of monopolies so as to strengthen democracy instead of weaken it. First, let's define business value. One value is to strengthen and diversify markets. A second value is to generate profits or returns for investors, stockholders, and stakeholders. A third value is innovation as related to industries or business categories. A fourth value is job creation. A fifth value is the generation of tax income, which benefits society and the governments. A sixth value could be the reduction of tax spending. Not many people discuss that. But if a business eliminates the use of taxpayer dollars, that is just as important as generating tax dollars to society and government. Now, 7 is what may be the most important and yet least considered value. Shouldn't a business which is benefiting from freedom and democracy also be providing support and promoting freedom and democracy for the markets and the citizens or consumers which utilize that business? What can possibly be of more value to all of us than freedom and democracy? But there is another value to consider. Isn't it valuable if consumers, customers, and supporters of democracy do not do business with businesses so as to eliminate the funding and support of businesses that undermine and weaken democracy? This also seems very valuable as well. Most of these, are values that capitalism, especially corrupted capitalism, fail to address. And these are the aspects or values of Thiel's idea about competition being for losers, where he fails to even consider when he said, creating value isn't enough. You also need to capture some of that value that you create. You see, libertarians and false capitalists always avoid the definitions of value as they relate to society and government
and the consumers or customers of business. They only consider the dollar value and the value of free markets. And then they write articles about monopolies which destroy and corrupt free markets that they profess to promote and worship, leaving them in a position where they only value the dollars that businesses produce for them, while they undermine and destroy capitalist markets.
In the future shows, we will dig into some really disruptive ideas related to possible business models and businesses in association with international, online, democratic nations and their economics.
And now, folks, you may have heard that the Bud Light and the Busch are wanting to get back to a more typical American-type advertising from when America was great. I, Dr. Gino Bartali, have been hired to create a new commercial in which I creatively chose to combine our advertising to prank gorgeous George Clooney into selling his tasty little peanuts to save the world. Bon appetito. And perhaps partake in some Busch while you watch. Buongiorno. As many of you know, we at the Little Penis That Could, the podcast and the cartoon series, we will go to extreme lengths to expand the conversations exploring what every possible way we can work to protect and expand democracy worldwide is. Like they say, any publicity is good publicity. So, with that said, I would like to give some props to my favorite beer, or at least my favorite beer name, Busch Beer. Look, folks, I know what you're thinking. You're really looking forward to the delightful experience of getting your hands on Gorgeous George's audaciously tasty, juicy, and nutritious little peanuts of positivities. But when you do, what are you gonna chase his little penis down with? Well, I, Dr. Gino Bartali, I recommend the Busch Beer. That's right, folks. Don't tell anyone I told you this, but Busch has been after Gorgeous George for years. That's why we at the Little Penis That Could, the podcast and the cartoon series, we recommend next time you find yourself with a handful of penis, make sure your other hand is holding a nice inky pinky nectar so that every time you take a sip, you'll be thinking, Mamma mia, that's a tasty Busch. Anyway, folks, join us as we prank Gorgeous George Clooney into selling his audaciously tasty little peanuts to funk up world democracies. And now, this week's a handwritten letter to Mr. Gorgeous George Clooney, delivered to you by the Italian Peanuts Shaft. Dear Gorgeous George Clooney, Socrates said, I know you won't believe me, but the highest form of human excellence is to question oneself and others. Mr. Gorgeous, you may not know it, but Socrates questioned democracy because he failed to understand how modern technology would make different kinds of democracy possible. Now, because we are pranking you as we ask these questions, you obviously know that our first question will be, will you sell your tasty, juicy, and nutritious little peanuts to save the world? But if a Socrates were here, I believe he might ask you this question. Can you think of any more impactful way to affect worldwide justice than to create international, online, Socratically democratic nations. Ion the nations, and perhaps the Ion the Peanuts nation. Oh, and in case you didn't know it, the CIA and Ukraine SBU, led by Captain Badass Brad, at this very moment, they are concluding training of the men and the women who stare at peanuts so as to execute Operation Peanuts Nation. They are ready to join us. Stay hungry, my friend, and share the peanuts. Ciao, Bella. And now, one of our great commercials about us, the Little Peanuts That Could, the podcast and the cartoon series, and our prank or plan to get millions of you all across the world to unite online for democracy, climate, women's rights, human rights, racial and LGBTQ rights, and the right of young people all across the world to actually be active effing participants in our world's economies, societies, and governments. Oh, and while we're at it, let's all unite and apply the needed economic, social, and political pressures to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. I mean, isn't that the very basic, decent, pro-democratic thing that all of us should feel compelled to do? To unite online and thank Ukraine as we help them by ending their war and using their nation and others across the world to relaunch our modern world in a new democratic direction. Look, we're dead serious. We hope you'll join us, and let's all do this by pranking gorgeous George Clooney's into selling his tasty little peanuts for charities and to save the world. Bon appetito, Brad Pitt.
Buongiorno. Do world events have you concerned? Do you find yourself clenching your sphincter tighter than a skeeter's ass in a nosedive? My name is Dr. Gino Bartale, and this is my Swami, Ashafak. Visit the Little Peanuts That Could, the podcast and the cartoon series, and catch our new shows every Thursday, where we think we can funk up democracies. Before we exit, some of you may be questioning our desires to create socially beneficial economic models and businesses that are monopolistic so as to mandate maximum value to us as the proprietors and consumers of these businesses and marketplaces in a world of international, online, Socratic democratic nations. Ion nations. Perhaps my Swami, Ashfaq, can enlighten us all in his show segment, Ruminations, or Chewings of the Pod, with Swami Ashfaq.
Socrates said, the secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. At the Church of the Untethered and Tasty Peanuts, we say, in order to change directions, one must point their penis where they wish to go. Join us next week, and please consider our Patreon. Stay hungry, my friends, and share the penis.
If you enjoy our shows and mission, please support our Patreon. Grazie.